bring on Tiffany Anderson, who is a whistleblower. She's a previous pesticide applicator for the San Joaquin Vector Department here in California. And after working there several years, there was many things that she saw happening. And this is like a perfect example, a role model of all the things that can go wrong within a government agency if left unattended, unaccountable, where we don't have people really going through and seeing what they're doing. And one of the things that always upset me before they sprayed is that we weren't hearing anything about it until maybe 11 o'clock at night when they're going to spray at 3 o'clock the next morning. So people really had no idea. And from what we ended last week with Tiffany, she was telling us that they're spraying in places that we would not even imagine. It's affecting all of us. So let's welcome Tiffany Anderson to Smart Health Talk. Welcome so much, Tiffany. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Elaine. Hi, everybody.
Woo!
Can I be seen? Are we good?
Yeah, you look great today. Yeah, that really is. I really like that outfit. She's off to a
Thank
concert
you.
after this and gonna do a little getting down and some country western, right?
Well, I'm going to listen to the Black Crows.
Oh,
And,
okay. Oh, they're not
famous.
really. Oh, they're not really country western. I guess I
They're not
misunderstood.
country at all. They're more like a kind of a grunge '90s rock band, and then a band called Live. And if you weren't a fan of them, then you'd have to look them up. But the one song they did was a Joni Mitchell remake of Big Yellow Taxi, which is, they say, "Farmer, farmer, put away your DDT. I don't care
Oh
about
yeah, I
spots on
know
my
that
apples.
song.
Leave me my
Farmer,
birds and the
farmer,
bees."
put away your DDT now.
Yes,
And
yes.
then it's like, put up a parking lot. Do, do,
Yeah.
do, 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 da. I remember that song.
I know it verbatim, word for word, and yeah, I like that song a lot. But they're kind of more of a grungy. They got kind of poppy for a little while, and they were used for movies, for little kids movies. So they kind of got poppy, but they were more grunge when I listened to them.
Well, we're both being patriotic today, Tiffany. I've got my red, white, and blue stripes on, and you got your stars and stripes on.
I do.
So,
I do. I'm so excited. I get to go on a date with my son, and that's rare. So
yeah,
very
that is,
excited.
and family, and that's what we were talking about at the beginning of our show. Is that's why we're here? Is we're here because we care about people, we care about their lives, their health. And
Absolutely.
because it can just be taken away so easily. A cancer diagnosis can be devastating, not only physically and with the possibility of death, but financially as well. And it's actually, healthcare is the number one reasons for bankruptcies in the United States. Over 60% of bankruptcies, Tiffany, are healthcare related because people get sick. And they even if they have health care, their health care can drop them.
Well,
And
I've noticed a lack of medical care. I'm like a naturist. I tend to lean more towards natural things. That's why God put them on the earth. I'm into essential oils. I think I just kind of mentioned that to you today for the first time.
no, I'm a firm believer in that as well.
Well, they're extracted from the stems, from the leaves, they're extracted from the earth. Now, if we're poisoning our earth, then eventually we won't even be able to go to those things. But everything that you can buy, like Bayer or those pesticides, Bayer, when I say Bayer, I mean Bayer aspirin. Bayer Pharmaceuticals is huge. If you Google Bayer, they manufacture pesticides as well as they manufacture pharmaceuticals.
Yes.
So so they're poisoning you, and then again they're giving you the remedy, which is their synthetic form of nature's best.
That's exactly right. And I have went through like all these different products that they make, and it blows me away, Tiffany, because hardly any of them are something that is anything that you would call natural. And I mean, it's like all these different chemicals and parts for cars, and And when it gets down to it, like Bayer aspirin, and I think they might be the makers of Tums. Uh, there's one company that makes like two different things, but they make Tums in the midst of all this stuff that is like non-human type products, right? That we
Right,
wouldn't put in
right.
our bodies, but almost everything else they make besides those two things, and it kind of makes you think, is there a chemical that they use in all these other products that they also use in the the antacid, right?
Well, okay, so I use doTERRA essential oils. I use a specific brand. The FDA came down so hard on them about 3 years ago because the pharmaceutical companies were up in arms. People were not, they were campaigning. They were campaigning, stop using synthetics, stop using pharmaceuticals. And it caused such an uproar. They came after doTERRA so heavy and so hard, the federal government. Um,
Yeah, because and
so they had to change a lot of their.
well, someone that I know that did research on their chia seed as actually being able to control blood sugar. Uh, they were not allowed to talk about that. They couldn't put it on their homepage, even though this was
Sure.
legitimate, done at the University of Toronto. It was done all legitimate research in that, but it was because the pharmaceutical companies are threatened by these alternatives.
They
And
will kill people. I mean, I'm serious. They will kill
I've heard
people.
of people using alternatives, cancer treatments, and talking out again that their people have choices that they've been found. They're young doctors finding them dead in their cars on their
Exactly.
in their
I've
neighborhood,
heard
and
scientists coming out trying to speak against certain things, and they lose their lives trying to speak the truth.
so
You know,
what? Yeah, and we're critical of other countries and claim that we're a free country. But and that's what we've been trying to say on this show for such a long time. When you give corporations the kind of power that they have now, which is never like they've had before, and they have influenced policy regarding pesticides that have allowed pesticides that we saw when we tested them were red flags. Alarms bells were going off right and left, and yet they were still able to get them approved. And we've seen this
you know
over
what?
and over again. Go ahead.
You were asking me, I'm so sorry, Elaine. My
No,
thoughts,
no, no,
they
please.
just start spinning.
Jump in. No,
You were
jump in.
asking me about, you were asking me about the fumigation. And so I started looking at and I couldn't help you with the fumigants, but we do spray adulticides. And the adulticides that, when I say we, it's because I still associate myself with them. In fact, I have a doctor's appointment next week. It's a QME, a qualified medical examiner's appointment, to determine whether I was exposed to chemicals in 2004 and 2011. So when I say we, it's because I'm still attached to them. And I am speaking about them, which is San Joaquin County Mosquito and Vector Control. But they use adulticides
What does that mean?
it's a an adulticide kills adult mosquitoes. So you have your eggs, you have your larvae, you have your pupa, and you have your adults. And so those are the metamorphosis cycles. So when they spray an adulticide, it only kills the adult mosquito. When they kill a pupicide, it's only kills the pupa.
Would that be like merit? Merit
It would
brand?
be it would
Nailed?
be. What's the question?
Nailed, or merit brand?
Are you saying nailed? Because
Yeah,
nailed is an
nailed. Yeah.
yeah, nailed, and nailed, yes, and it's organophosphate, which they're supposed to be testing any vector control. Anybody who uses it is supposed to have their blood test annually, but they don't comply with that, as they don't comply with anything else. But what I was going to tell you about these adulticide, yes, nailed is an adulticide. And I was looking up scourge, because scourge was a common adulticide we would use. And scourge, I was reading the label, and it says the handler must be able to read and speak English. And this, they cannot translate the label in any other manner. They can't translate it to Spanish. They can't because you'll lose the meaning in the communications. So this is how powerful or toxic the scourge is. Said the label must be written in English and understood in English, and it must be read every time before you use this product. But they
Really?
also have an inert ingredient, and an inert ingredient is an ingredient that the FDA has allowed the pesticide company manufacturer to. This is an amount of unknown. I think it's 37% of unknown, whatever they want to put inside their adulticide or their poison, that we don't get to know what's in it. That's what an inert
So it
ingredient
doesn't
is.
even have to be listed on the label as an ingredient whatsoever.
Correct.
It's secret.
Yes, it's secret for patent reasons. Right?
That's how they get away with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And from what I've heard, Tiffany, like is it BOEA or AE? It's a surfactant. That's supposed to be even more toxic than like glyphosate in Roundup. So the inert ingredients can be, from what I've learned, they can be more toxic than the active ingredient, and that an inert ingredient can actually be an excuse me, an active ingredient in another product. And so here it's an active ingredient in another product, a secret inert ingredient in a different product. And yet it's supposed to be listed as an active ingredient. But they're getting away with using...
Elaine,
Go ahead.
You're cutting out a little bit. You're cutting out a little bit. Like I'm getting every other word that you're saying.
Oh, okay. Well,
but
that
you
could be...
actually,
Yeah, let me try to clear my voice a little bit. So anyway, yeah, sorry, I was having a little trouble talking.
Says I have poor connection.
Okay, see if you can hear me now. So anyway,
you know more than I do.
Okay, an inert.
Because I don't know. They don't teach us what the inert ingredients
are.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
Says I have a poor connection on my side.
Yeah, the inert ingredient can be an act. It can be.
Can you hear me at all?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Well, that's not good.
Can you hear me? Testing.
Let's
can you hear me?
Mine says poor connection.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe you could. Yeah, she is kind of stalling on her connection. Okay, can you hear me now?
Shoot. I think I'm using too much Wi-Fi here where I'm staying. I can hear you, and I'm going to try and move around and see if I can have better reception somewhere else.
Well, don't worry about what I'm saying. I'd rather listen to what you have to say, and we can hear you fine.
Because we were on to something there.
Yeah, well, the inert ingredients, like you said, those are something really that we should be really scared about, because those can be more dangerous than the active ingredient, and an inert ingredient can be an active ingredient in another product, but yet it's kept secret in a different one. So those inert ingredients, you're right, they are super scary. And we have had people like the Center for Biological Diversity and Beyond Pesticides go to court trying to get those inert ingredients exposed to the public, but they have been able to keep that secret all this time. But that is just another important reason why we should be wary about the safety of pesticides. They have secret ingredients in them that we're not even allowed to know what they are, except apparently the toxologist that works for the government, they can demand a complete ingredient list from the company.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I did not know that. Who can?
The toxologist, because I spoke to her, that one that was here when they were trying to educate people before they sprayed for West Nile virus. And she told me that she had access to the complete ingredient list if she wanted to. And so I thought,
well,
so
why
you
would
can get
she
it.
Why would she? Yeah. What?
Because
why is she allowed and why aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. Because you know what? Doctors are expected to treat patients without even knowing what they've been exposed to. Because even if you went in and you said, I'm exposed to nail it, or however you say that, they are not.
It's nailed, NALID.
Yeah, they're not, the doctor is not going to have the complete list of what you've actually been exposed to, even looking at the product list because of those inert ingredients. So how is a doctor supposed to treat a patient when they don't even know what they've been exposed
Well,
to?
you hit
Because you're going to the doctor next week.
shoot.
Can you hear me?
I can. It's like you're cutting in and out, but you're hitting such an important topic for me um, because I have been to the doctor and they don't know that that is why I can't seem to be proving about, you know, my workers' comp injuries is because doctors seem to know nothing about it, or they falsify documentation when they handle our claims.
Yeah, and tell everyone,
So I
tell
learned
everyone,
some
Tiffany,
information
about.
this last week about the coworker, one of the coworkers I was talking about. Am I cutting it?
No, no, you're fine. You're fine. Tell everyone about your experience.
Hold on one second, please.
Sure.
Where's your Wi-Fi? Where's your Wi-Fi? I'm trying to do.
Yeah, the password's welcome.
No, I got the.
Oh,
it's
sorry.
like cutting
Tiffany's
poor
actually.
network connection. Where's the router?
She's at a
It's
hotel right
upstairs.
now, so she's not at her normal home. I tell you, the
Maybe I
hotel
just announced
Wi-Fi
it.
always
Okay.
sucks.
Can you hear me,
I can hear you fine. I can hear you.
Elaine?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Shoot. All right. Let's see. Can Okay, you can hear me. So I'm trying to find a spot here where I'm at. Okay. So, tell you
Your picture.
about the
Yeah, go ahead and
the
tell.
cancer that I learned about this week. Is that what we're going to talk about?
Well, yeah, and just how you're treated as an employee. Like they send you to their doctor, and this whole procedure is like set up to cover up what's happening to employees instead of like reporting it.
So my first year employed there, I was not licensed, which is a state requirement, and I had 3 exposures. They sent me to their doctors, and you know their doctors should be fully knowledgeable. First of all, they should have every label, you know, that when we handle pesticides and we're out in the work, you know, when we're out in the county working, the ag department has the authority to pull us over any time, and any pesticide we have on our person, we have to have a label of that pesticide, and we have to give it to the ag department immediately. So you are not allowed to be using chemicals at all unless you have the label, you understand it, and so that same understanding should be followed to the doctor's office when you are being treated by their doctors for exposures. And they don't do that. The doctors just act like they're oblivious to what you're saying, even though they know that you're a pesticide applicator, because the doctors who I was sent to for treatment actually did a pre-employment physical. They drug tested me. They, you know, took all my vitals, took blood. I had to go back for a series of Hep A, B, and C, which also is like, well, why do you need Hep A, B, and C unless you're working within some very dangerous and dirty conditions? But we were required to work in like human waste, so we were required to have those shots. So when you go to their doctors, the doctors are supposed to, by law, well, first of all, the employer, because we're working with pesticides, if they have any suspicion that if we've missed 2 days of work and they believe it's pesticide related, they're required by law to notify OSHA and inform them. They've never done that. And so then when I had my second exposure, I was required to work that day. So I reported to work. I went to the manager. I'm like, hey, you know, I'm going to see your doctor today. And on top of that, I have my own doctor's appointment and I'm here working. How would you like me to document this on my timesheet? And he told me just to write that I was out working in the field. And so I have a copy of that timesheet. I have a copy of each medical record from from both doctors I went to, which contradict the fact that I was not working, that I was actually at a doctor's office, and they had me falsify the information so that they could, you know, not be on the radar for what was really going on. In 2011, I was contacted by the district attorney's office, and the district attorney's office wanted all my medical records because they wanted to inform me that I had been exposed to formaldehyde for 10 years without my knowledge or my consent. And so within the little bit of time it took for me to gather my medical records, the district attorney investigator, Mike Morris, who had done my initial interview, he had died. He had died of cancer, like really rapidly. So when I went back to the DA's office, one of the DA investigators asked me, she said, were they your chemicals that he got that killed him? And I don't know, I mean, I had just learned of the formaldehyde poisoning for the first time by him, and now he's gone and he's dead. And the guy who was over him, Scott Fickner, would not talk to me at all. And he wrote OSHA, telling OSHA that my employer had done nothing wrong, which was further from the truth. It was an outright lie. And now one of my coworkers has I learned just last week by my supervisor, that the one that I mentioned in the interview last week, she had part of her eyelid removed due to cancer. So that's very sad thing, and they're not reporting these things. And we're the test subjects. As employees, we're the test subjects. And I don't know if you can see on my neck, but I actually have chemical burns. I don't know if you'll be able to see them.
Yeah, I can see how red it is. It looks
I do
really
have
red.
I do have a sunburn, but I have chemical burns. I have them all over my neck.
And so that
I'm
was
sorry.
And that was from the pesticide spraying on your skin.
Correct. Or Elaine, I mean, it could have been coming in my skin or out of my skin. As I mentioned to you on our phone call before this interview, I started doing a lot of detoxing. I used to do these ion foot baths, and it was really weird. They would put these like metal coils and then put salt into the to the water, and every time they would do it, they'd put the same ingredients in these little foot baths, but every time something different would come out. Sometimes it would be green, sometimes it would be black. So I started doing these ion foot baths. Then I started getting weekly massages. They turned into like daily massages. By the time I had left that place, I was getting one massage a day. I would get them 5 days a week. And I was using essential oils to detox my body.
Did you notice like other things coming out of your body? Because
I kind of got distracted. My son was trying to call me in the middle of this conversation, and I kind of got sidetracked there. Did I answer any questions?
No, you did. If you need to take a break and call him back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. Now I can.
Okay, good. Anyway, if you need to go talk to your son, let us know, okay? But
well, I kind of want to do this interview, but it's so distracting. Like, it says that we have poor connection, and this content is so important. I don't want to just glide over
we've
it.
heard you. No, we've heard you fine, Tiffany. So the connection's been good. Don't worry about that.
Cool.
Yeah, and so
Cool.
Anyway.
Okay. Well, he can wait. He knew from 4 to 5 I was going to have this interview.
Oh, okay. All right. So So when you were exposed to these different things, like what was like the first how did you know that you had been exposed? Because people are spraying this stuff around their house, they're not using everything that you used, but some of these chemicals people are using around their home.
Okay, I had a clean medical history, and I started getting chronic headaches. I started having sinus problems. I began breaking out in rash, as did all of my coworkers. I would have gynecological issues like excessive bleeding.
Missed periods. Would
I'm
they be
really having to dig
irregular?
back into some painful. Of what? First, it was excessive, like to the point. This is pretty humiliating. But during during the time when I whistle blew, I was still having the excessive periods, and I had to tell my supervisor, hey, I might have to come into the yard to take a shower and clean off. And he goes, you know what, just wait here a minute. And he went back to the manager and he told the manager what I told him. And he came back and he sent me home because I might be a liability to the district by having a menstrual cycle. So I guess I was having my periods were so heavy that they decided I would be a liability to them, and they sent me home. So that was the symptom.
And you had never had those previous to that job?
No. And then it just all of a sudden it went from extreme to that to just completely stopping. And I was like 32 to 34. I was, I wasn't old enough for, to stop, to be going through menopause.
Did you notice with all the massages?
So I mean, we used hormone growth regulators, and that would be the one I could sense or feel different when I would go home for like a 3-day or 4-day weekend, and I'd start feeling a little better, and then I'd come to work, and I mean, I could feel it. I had constant sinus issues, and rhinitis is one of the biggest side effects to the formaldehyde. It begins in your nasal passages, goes into your esophagus, into your chest, into your throat, and then ultimately you end up with internal cancer. And what the formaldehyde label, MSDS label, says is that people who do not come up with symptoms that are not symptomatic immediately, they will end up with the most severest of cancers because they won't have any symptoms or signs warning them, which is pretty scary. I actually came up with external symptoms before, so far so good. I don't have cancer or anything that I know of. There was a period of time when I so I worked 5.
Do you think the massage really helped clean out your lymph nodes and kind of?
Absolutely. I'm sorry, I'm not letting you finish this.
No, go ahead. That was the question.
Absolutely. I had a teacher. She was the teacher of the massage class, and her name was Maxine. And Maxine, I had come in to get a massage, and it was the first time I'd ever met with her. And when she was done with me, she kept flicking her fingers at me. I don't know if you can see me doing this. She was flicking her fingers at me like this. And she goes, honey, I can't help you. And I'm like, I don't know what that meant, but I just knew that the massage felt pretty awesome. And so I asked her, well, even though you can't help me, can I come back? And she said, sure. So we scheduled an appointment, and she called me when the day of the appointment. She goes, I need to cancel this appointment. And I was, I'm a very determined person. So I'm like, well, can we reschedule this appointment? So we rescheduled it. And she called me back the second time, and she was, I could hear it. She was really sick. And she goes, honey, I can't work on you anymore. She said, but I have a massage therapist. He's a guy. He's just graduating my school. And if it's okay with you, then he's willing to work on you, but I can't work on you. So my pesticides actually leaked through me into this woman, and she refused to work on me anymore. So yes.
Oh, really? Oh, so that's what happened from touching you. The pesticides got into her system and caused symptoms
yes.
for her with her health?
She refused to work on me.
Wow.
I know for the 2 weeks that she called to reschedule, she was deathly sick, really sick. And then the third time it was like, I won't work on you anymore. Here's somebody who will. And he was 19 when he started doing my massages. He has been my massage therapist since he was 19. And I think he's like 32, 33. Yeah, he's 33. And, But here's the interesting part. Not only was I using the massage and the foot ions, but I was also using essential oils. I was putting a lot of supplements in my body, and I changed my eating habits. But after 5 consecutive years of working with the pesticides, I had been removed for a year, almost not a year, but about 9 months for a knee injury at work. And I had to have a knee surgery. So it was more 6 months. It wasn't 9, but I could so tell the difference in my body when I was not there touching those pesticides when I had that knee surgery. So I was removed 3 times because I actually had 4 meniscal tears while I was working there. But during the fourth one, I was so sick and I was on rounds of antibiotics. The surgeon refused to do my knee surgery until I was off of antibiotics. So you can't tell me that the pesticides don't do any, don't harm people. I won't believe it. I I won't tell anybody anything otherwise because it would be a lie. And when your employer is falsifying documents, your medical records, or they're disappearing, that really needs to be questioned,
Who?
especially by the, are you laughing?
Oh no, I'm not laughing. I
Oh,
wanted I
oh.
wanted to ask you who the people are, based on your knowledge of what the Vector Department does. Um, what groups out there do you feel are the most at risk for pesticide exposure without even knowing it? That they are
I
probably getting a good dose and they don't even know it.
Oh, you're saying who could be, because I automatically okay, I would say anybody. I mean, we roll onto people's properties without their permission or their knowledge, and we spray pesticides on their property without even getting consent. They're called known sources. We put pesticides in trees. We put pesticides in the water drainage systems where it says do not put pesticides. Plus, if you have untrained pesticide applicators, they don't even know what they're doing. So, I mean, the whole public at large is, but I think that the mothers who are pregnant, I think the children and the elderly are the least susceptible to fight off the pesticide poisoning. But I don't think pretty much anywhere people are safe because they have their planes and they're flying those adulticides whether you want it or not. I mean, follow Vector. Right now they're having a campaign. They're starting to publicize themselves, trying to get their West Nile funding. So follow. I think I sent you three articles that they had just published this week with their PR guy, Aaron DeVincenzi. And if you just follow the fish, are they still putting the aquacultures on the fish? And then are they taking them into people's homes and putting them in their ponds? Anybody that Vector the technicians are on their property, those people are susceptible, but just the public at large. I drove through our towns with the adulticide, those foggers, the fogger trucks.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, Nalid's in those. They put Nalid in that, or Scourge.
And they're spraying it down the residential streets
Yes,
without
exactly.
people even knowing at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and
Yes. Yeah.
they'll tell you like at 11 o'clock at night, oh, we're going to spray tomorrow morning, which is like within 5 hours, and they'll
It's
put it on the late news, and that's the only thing people get to even, and most people aren't even seeing it, so they don't even
well,
have any idea.
most people are so afraid of their West Nile campaign. They have such a heavy West Nile campaign that most people are so afraid to get this West Nile that they think, okay, the pesticide is the lesser of the evil, when this agency isn't to be trusted. They're actually spraying, I call it justify to fly. They're actually creating their own West Nile. And that's a topic we can get into, a whole hour's topic of how they don't. It should be about prevention. And if you can remove the source, so let's say, do you know, like in a tree, like if an oak tree has a limb that falls, it'll collect water in there, and that's a mosquito source. So we'll go around and we will put this methoprene, the hormone growth regulator, inside the tree, in the little tree hole. When we could instead actually patch or putty up the hole and never have to put pesticide in it again.
Yeah.
So
I like that idea.
Okay, so then cemetery urns. When you go, we have in Stockton, we have the Catholic cemetery, and there's like, sometimes because it's Catholic, they have six holes for flowers in front of one deceased person's burial plot, and so each one holds water. Those carry the mosquito larvae. So instead of mandating that the cemetery fill those holes with sand and just having the person put the flowers in sand, or eliminating all 6 holes altogether and just saying, hey, that this kills people. We go out and we spend 3 months out of the year, a whole crew of people, and treat every single urn. And we put a pinch. Like if we put like a half of a tablespoon or half of a teaspoon of pesticide in every single urn. That's ridiculous. Do you know the man hours that they use and the pesticides that they use that are so toxic?
You're blowing my mind, Tiffany. I had no clue this was actually going on. When you think about all those cemetery plots and all those urn holes, and plus people are going unknowingly touching that and putting the flowers in, and they don't even know that they're touching something that had pesticide put in it.
Absolutely. I mean, a loved one could come up right behind, right behind us, and we would see them out there. And of course, if you see somebody out there and they're at their gravesite, I mean, sometimes they'd be having funerals, which is really sad. But those people are coming up right behind us, and they could just be dumping the water out to put fresh water in. I mean, it makes no sense, Elaine. It's all it is they want to keep the machine running. They want to make sure that the revenue's coming in, so they create, ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous work that they do just so they can keep that revenue coming in.
Wow. So this is Tiffany Anderson, everyone. She's a whistleblower. She worked for San Joaquin Vector Department, and she's been explaining about some of the things that they did in their job as far as spraying pesticides. And you talk about West Nile viruses, like, these people dying. When you look at like how many people died in a year, and maybe they could say, oh, it's because we're spraying all these pesticides, but I don't think so, because West Nile affects most people either not at all or very mild flu-like symptoms. It's like 63 people died in the whole country from West Nile virus. And some of that, it can be iffy, because if they had a flu vaccine, they can test positive, even though, and like they had West Nile, when really it's from the flu vaccine. So it could be a lower number than that. And a lot of those people are sick in the hospital with multiple problems that die. So,
Exactly.
This is like something that, we've created this huge fear. And I'm really glad that you mentioned that is a motivation for people to be okay with the spraying, because they're thinking it's the lesser of two evils. That was such an important point,
Right.
Tiffany. And I really want to thank you. We only have like 1 minute left. Why don't you go ahead and tell everyone that your blog address again?
Okay, my blog address is Culexpipien, CULEXPIPIEN.com, and it's kind of all over the place, but there's an index, and if you go to the index, it's linear and it goes by year. So
that you have all your documentation on there, and people.
Not all of it, Elaine. There was way too much.
Oh,
but
okay.
what I do have is I have about 30 years of document, because I have my deceased supervisor's documents on there.
We're working on getting the son of that person on the show too. So we have some more coming up in the future for everyone. And thanks again, Tiffany.
Thank you.
And you have a great time tonight. Okay.
I will. Thank you,
Black
Elaine,
Crows.
so much.
All right.
Take care.
Okay, everyone.
Bye.
All right. Thanks for tuning in to Smart Health Talk. I'm your host, Elaine McFadden. I hope you'll be joining us again next Tuesday. Go check out our website, smarthealthtalk.com. And don't forget, BlueMonarchProject.com, because we're raising a bunch of monarchs. We have like 40 chrysalids right now at our home, and a bunch more caterpillars, and already released about 50 butterflies. Please help support us. Go check out all the information we have on our website. And don't forget, KCAA Radio. You can tune in at 102.3, 106.5, and 1050 AM. Thanks again. I'm your host, Elaine McFadden. Bye. KC